chosen one. Before you do anything else with this hour of your life, sit down where you are and let your breathing slow. Whatever you are carrying into this moment, set it down for the next 30 minutes, because what you are about to hear was not delivered to your screen by accident. Heaven does not run on coincidence. Heaven runs on appointment, and there is an appointment between your spirit and this word at this exact hour, on this exact night, while the rest of the world keeps spinning around you as if nothing eternal is happening. Something eternal is happening, something that began long before you were born, and that will outlive the breath in your lungs. There has been a plot written against your bloodline, a real one, a long one, a patient one. And tonight the Father wants you to know that He just tore it up. Hear me clearly. This is not poetry. This is not theater. This is not the kind of language people use to sound spiritual while saying nothing. There has been an actual document in the unseen realm, an actual accusation, an actual scheme that has been working against the line of people you came from, the line of people standing beside you now, and the line of people who will come from you after you are gone. The enemy did not draft that scheme yesterday. He drafted it generations ago. He has been working it patiently, quietly, methodically, hoping nobody in your family tree would ever wake up enough to read what was written or stand up enough to challenge it. He has been hoping that the wounds would simply pass from parent to child, from child to grandchild, from grandchild to great-grandchild, the way a sickness travels in silence through a sleeping house. And he almost succeeded. But almost is the word that the enemy will be living with for the rest of your lifetime, because tonight the Father took the document into His own hands, looked at it once, and tore it down the middle in front of every spirit watching. Listen to me carefully. The reason you have felt heavy without explanation is not a personality flaw. The reason certain patterns keep repeating in your family is not because you are doing something wrong. The reason the same kind of pain shows up in different generations wearing different clothes is not because your family is uniquely broken. There is a structure in the spirit that was built against your bloodline, and that structure has been feeding off the unhealed places in your ancestors for longer than anyone living can remember. You inherited not only the color of your eyes and the shape of your hands, you inherited a battle that was never yours to start, and yet became yours to finish. And the Father is finishing it tonight through you. If your spirit is already trembling because the words are landing where you have not had language to land them before, do something for me right now. Open the comments and write, "My bloodline is being released tonight." Just those words. Write them slowly. Let your hands agree with your spirit, because every time a child of God speaks aloud what heaven has already decreed, something legal happens in the courts above. You are not begging for permission. You are confirming the verdict. And tonight, the verdict is favor of the defendant. The bloodline rests. The plot is torn. The chains that traveled through generations stop at your generation, because the one who knows your name has decided that you will not pass them to the children who will one day carry your last name forward. Now lean in, because there is something about how the enemy works that I want you to see with clear eyes. The enemy does not waste plots on the unimportant. He builds plots where promises live. He studies bloodlines the way a man studies a target, looking for the moment when the family will produce a soul who carries weight in the kingdom, a soul who could turn the tide of an entire household, a soul who could repair what generations of wounding have torn apart. When he finds the bloodline that will produce such a soul, he does not wait for that soul to be born to begin his work. He begins generations before. He plants offenses between brothers. He plants addictions into the cup of a grieving father. He plants fear into the heart of a mother who only wanted to protect what she loved. He plants poverty into the language of a grandparent who learned to call lack a virtue. He plants silence into the place where forgiveness should have lived. And then he waits. He waits for these small plantings to grow into a forest, dense enough that no one inside it can find the way out. That forest is the plot. And the plot is what has been pressing against your family for far longer than you knew. But here is the part the enemy never tells. He does not write the final chapter. He only writes drafts. And the Father, who has been reading every draft from the beginning, has the authority to revise, to interrupt, to overwrite, and when the moment is right, to tear the entire manuscript apart. Tonight is the night he tears it. He does not need your permission to do it. He has only been waiting for your awareness to catch up to his action, because a child of God who knows what their Father has done walks differently than a child of God who is still hoping their father might do something. You are stepping out of hoping and stepping into knowing. And knowing is the posture that breaks the residue of every old assignment. There is a story tucked into the word that almost no one teaches the way it deserves to be taught. A man named Mordecai sat at the gate of a foreign palace, dressed in ordinary clothes, doing ordinary work, raising a young woman named Esther who had no idea what she was being prepared for. While Mordecai sat at that gate, a man named Haman was rising in influence inside the palace walls. Haman carried a wound that traced back generations, an old hatred between his lineage and the lineage of Mordecai, a quarrel that no living person had personally started, but that the spirit of bitterness had kept warm for centuries. When Mordecai refused to bow to Haman, Haman did not simply respond with personal anger. He drafted a plot. He drafted it against an entire bloodline. He paid for it with silver. He stamped it with the king's ring. He set a date for the destruction, and the law went out across many provinces with the kind of finality that no human appeal could overturn. The Jewish people did not know on the morning of that decree what had been written against them in the night. They went to their wells. They tended their fires. They held their children. They had no idea that, miles away, ink had been pressed against parchment with their bloodline written underneath in a hand that intended their ending. But there was a Mordecai. There was an Esther. There was a sleepless king. There was a forgotten record being read aloud in the middle of a sleepless night for reasons no one could explain. There was a queen who walked uninvited into a throne room, knowing the law could have killed her for it. And there was a God who had been arranging every detail of that moment for decades before any of them were born. By the time the plot reached its hour, the father had already torn it. He had built his own document into the bloodline. The gallows that Haman built for Mordecai became the gallows that held Haman. The destruction prepared for an entire people became the testimony of an entire people. And to this day, the descendants of those who were targeted still gather every year to remember the night the father tore the plot. Chosen one, the same father is moving over you tonight. There is a Mordecai in your bloodline. There may be one you never met. There may be one you have not yet recognized. There is a quiet intercessor sitting at the gate of your family, sometimes in this generation, sometimes in a generation before yours, who has been refusing to bow to the spirit of bitterness, who has been carrying a hidden faith that the rest of the family did not know was there. The father heard that faith. The father remembered it. The father has been waiting for the exact configuration of timing to release a deliverance that does not only touch one person, but resets an entire line. You are part of that configuration. You are the Esther of your moment, even if you do not feel like royalty, even if you do not feel chosen, even if you do not feel ready. Esther did not feel ready either. Esther was terrified. Esther fasted. Esther wept. And Esther walked anyway, because the father had positioned her in the palace not for personal comfort, but for collective deliverance. The man named Clive Staples Lewis once observed something quietly devastating about the nature of evil. He noticed that evil does not have the power to create anything on its own. It can only spoil, mimic, twist, and steal. Everything the enemy has ever done has been done with materials borrowed from a good thing the father made first. That truth, when you sit with it long enough, dismantles fear at its root, because the plot against your bloodline has no original power. Every piece of it has been borrowed from a wound that someone in your family did not bring to the father, borrowed from an agreement an ancestor made without knowing the weight of their words, borrowed from a silence that should have been a confession, borrowed from a grief that calcified into a vow. And the moment that borrowed material is returned to the father, the plot loses its standing. It cannot continue to function on materials it never owned. That is what tonight is. Tonight is the night the father reclaims every borrowed piece and leaves the plot standing on nothing. Some of you have been carrying a confusion you could not put into words. You have looked at your family and wondered why prayer seems to work for other households but bounce off your own. You have watched other people inherit blessings that seem natural to them while you have had to fight for every inch of forward motion. You have noticed how grief seems to know the address of your bloodline by heart, how loss seems to remember the way back to your door. You have asked the Father quietly, "What is it about us? What is it about my family? What is the thing I cannot see that keeps moving against us?" Tonight is the answer. The answer is not that there was something wrong with you. The answer is not that the Father loved your family less. The answer is that there has been a structure in the spirit that needed to be torn down, and the Father, who is patient and precise, was waiting for the right generation to host the tearing. That generation is yours. That tearing is now. If this is hitting somewhere honest, take a moment right now to like this video, so the algorithm can carry this word to the next chosen one whose bloodline is groaning for release. Share it with one relative who has been quietly enduring what no one in your family has ever named out loud. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, subscribe tonight, because the season we are walking into is not a season for missing messages. The Father is speaking on appointment, and missing an appointment can mean missing a key that was cut just for the door you have been standing in front of for years. Now let me show you another picture from the Word that will lift weight off your shoulders. There was a young king named Josiah who came to power in a kingdom that had been drifting for generations. His grandfather had been a king of compromise. His father had been a king of corruption. By the time Josiah inherited the throne, the temple itself had fallen into disrepair, and the people had forgotten the language of the covenant their ancestors had once spoken fluently. Josiah did not have to repair the temple. He could have continued the drift. He could have told himself that the problem was too old, too deep, too generational to be solved in one lifetime. But Josiah did something the men before him refused to do. He gave the order for the temple to be cleaned. And as the workers were sweeping out the dust of generations of neglect, they discovered a scroll, the word of the Lord, lost for so long that an entire kingdom had forgotten what was written there. They brought the scroll to Josiah. They read it aloud. And when Josiah heard what had been written, what had been promised, what had been warned, what had been waiting under the dust for generations, he tore his own clothes in grief and repentance, and he stood up and led an entire kingdom back to the Father. Chosen one, that young king is a portrait of you. You were not born into the easiest family. You did not inherit a clean spiritual house. The ones who came before you, some of them with good intentions and some of them with no intentions at all, left certain rooms in your bloodline so cluttered that nobody since has been able to find the flaw, but you have given a different order. Maybe you did not even realize you were giving it. Maybe it began as a whisper one night when you said to the Father, "I will not pass this on." Maybe it began as a sentence you spoke without anyone hearing, when you decided that you would be the one who learns what the others never learned. The Father heard that order. He has been sending workers into the rooms of your bloodline to sweep what others left behind. And in the sweeping, he has uncovered a scroll of the promises that were spoken over your family long before the plots were written, a scroll that names what the Father always intended for the line you came from. And tonight that scroll is being read aloud in heaven over your name, and the plot that opposed it is being torn in the same hour. There is a wound in your bloodline that the Father is naming tonight, not naming to expose you to shame, naming to release you from carrying it. There is a place where someone in your family, generations back, made a quiet decision in the middle of a hard season that the Father is asking you to confront on their behalf. They did not know what they were doing. They did not understand that the words they spoke would build a structure that their grandchildren would have to live underneath. They were not evil. They were tired. They were wounded. They were doing the best they could with the small light they had. And in that tiredness, they made an agreement, perhaps with poverty, because they could not see provision, perhaps with fear, because they could not see safety, perhaps with silence, because they could not see anyone strong enough to hear them, perhaps with bitterness, because they could not see the one who would have lifted the bitterness if they had given it to him. That agreement built a doorway in your bloodline that the enemy has been walking through ever since. Tonight the Father is closing the door, not asking you to investigate every ancestor, not asking you to dig up records or unearth secrets that should remain buried, only asking you to agree with him as he works. He knows where every door was opened. He knows which generation opened which one. He knows the exact words that were spoken in the rooms you will never enter, and he is closing them one by one with an authority that does not require your understanding to be effective. Your job is not to know everything. Your job is to trust the one who does know everything and to walk forward in the freedom that he is purchasing for you and for the children who will one day call you ancestor. This is one of the holy mysteries of the bloodline. You do not only carry what was passed down to you, you also pass down what you decide to overcome. The freedom you fight for in this season becomes the inheritance the next generation receives without fighting. The healing you choose in your hidden hours becomes the natural state of the grandchildren you may not live to meet. The forgiveness you give to a family member who never deserved it becomes the soft heart that your great-grandchildren will carry without knowing why. You are not just being delivered, you are being commissioned. You are not just being healed. You are being turned into a doorway through which the Father will pour blessings into a future you will not always see. That is why the warfare against your generation has been so loud. The enemy was not only fighting you, he was fighting the people who would come from you. And he knew that if he could break you, he could break the inheritance that was supposed to flow through you. But you did not break. You may have bent. You may have wept. You may have whispered to the ceiling in the dark that you were not sure you could keep going. But you kept going. And tonight your keeping going is being honored in the courts of heaven. The man called Lewis once wrote about the secret weight that ordinary people carry without knowing they carry it. The way every soul you brush against in a single day is either becoming something glorious or something tragic, and the choices made in small, unseen moments are shaping eternal outcomes that the natural eye cannot yet see. He understood that families are not collections of personalities. Families are courtrooms and altars and battlefields at the same time. The kitchen where you ate breakfast as a child was also a place where covenants were being made or broken without anyone knowing. The hallway where you walked past your parents arguing was also a corridor where angels and accusers were arguing on a different floor of the same house. The bedroom where you cried alone as a teenager was also a room where the Father was beginning to write you into a story that would one day deliver the very family that did not know how to hold you then. Nothing about your upbringing was wasted. The Father has been at work in every shadow you remember, and tonight he is showing you why. Now hear this, because it is the part the enemy fought hardest to keep from your hearing. When the Father tears a plot, he does not only stop the harm, he repurposes the territory the plot was operating on. The very places where the plot had built strongholds become the places where the Father now builds testimonies. The very weakness that ran through your bloodline becomes the very strength your bloodline will be known for in the next chapter. The very wound your family tried to hide becomes the very ministry your family will offer to other families. The Father does not waste suffering. He does not waste history. He does not waste even the longest and quietest of plots. He converts. He restores. He makes new what looked permanently broken. And the family that the enemy targeted because he saw what was coming will become the family that produces exactly what he tried to prevent. That is the holy joke at the end of every plot against a bloodline that belongs to the Father. The enemy worked so hard to stop what the Father had already promised would come. Some of you, even as you listen, are feeling something rise in your chest that you have not allowed yourself to feel for years. A small flicker of hope for people you had given up on. A whisper of belief that maybe the relative who has been lost can be restored. A faint suggestion that the addiction that has hovered over your family for 3 generations might actually break in yours. A trembling possibility that the silence between you and someone you loved could one day be filled with something better than awkwardness. Do not push these flickers down. They are not naive. They are not foolish. They are the early evidence of a tearing that has already happened in the spirit and is now beginning to show its effects in the natural. Hope is not the enemy of wisdom. False hope is the enemy of wisdom. Hope rooted in the verdict of heaven is the very fuel that carries a chosen one through the rebuilding that comes after a plot has been torn. There is also a posture the Father is calling you into in this season. He is calling you into intercession with peace instead of intercession with panic. There is a kind of prayer that comes from a heart that is not sure whether anything will happen, and there is a kind of prayer that comes from a heart that knows the Father has already moved and is simply agreeing with what has been done. You are being lifted into the second kind. You will pray for your family differently from now on. You will not pray with desperation. You will pray with declaration. You will not beg the Father to do what he has already promised. You will agree with what he has already finished. That shift in posture is going to change the atmosphere of every conversation in your home. People will not be able to name what changed, but they will feel it. The weight that used to sit in your shoulders when you walked into a family gathering will not be there anymore. You will bring a different air with you, and the air you bring will begin to dismantle in the natural what has already been dismantled in the spirit. This is your activation, beloved. Stand in your home tonight, even if you only walk through it in your imagination from where you are sitting. Speak peace over every doorway. Speak honor over the place where your parents live, whether they are alive or have already passed. Speak release over the bedroom where your child sleeps, whether your child is a baby or a grown adult who is no longer speaking to you. Speak protection over the road where your sibling drives. Speak provision over the workplace where your spouse goes when you are not with them. Speak the goodness of the Father over every place your bloodline currently touches, and over every place your bloodline will one day touch. You do not need a long prayer. You do not need fancy language. You only need a settled heart and a willing tongue. The words that come out of a settled heart and a willing tongue carry the same kind of weight that tore the veil in the temple on the day the Lamb was lifted up. You are not a small person speaking small words. You are a chosen one speaking from the authority of a courtroom whose verdict has already been signed. In one word, write in the comments how you want the Father to mark your bloodline in this new chapter. Free, whole, healed, holy, restored, honored. Just one word. Let it be the banner the Father raises over your household tonight while the rest of the world sleeps. And if this word has met you the way I believe it has, share it tonight with one person whose family has been groaning the way yours has been groaning. The deliverance that has been authorized for your bloodline does not have to stay with one person. It moves, it spreads, it strengthens with every voice that agrees with it. There is more than one bloodline being released tonight, and you are part of how the release travels. You are loved. You are chosen. You are not the failure of your family tree. You are the answer to it. You are not the end of a sad story. You are the beginning of a new one. You are not the residue of every ancestor who could not break what you are breaking. You are the inheritance that they prayed for even when they did not know what to call the prayer. You are the Mordecai at the gate. You are the Esther in the palace. You are the Josiah on the throne. You are the unexpected one through whom the Father has chosen to tear what the enemy spent generations writing, and the tearing has already begun. It is finished in heaven. It is unfolding on the earth. It is being signed into the lives of the people you love, even those who are not yet aware of what is being done on their behalf, even those who are still hostile, even those who are still hiding, even those who are still hurting in the same patterns the generations before them carried. So rest tonight in a different bed than the one you have been lying in for years. The bed of striving is empty now. The bed of bracing is empty now. The bed of waiting for the next disaster to land on your family is empty now. There is a new bed prepared for you by the one who knows how tired you have been. And the linens of that bed are woven from the promises he has been making over your name since before time. Lay down in that bed tonight, chosen one. Close your eyes under a different sky. The plot that was written against your bloodline has been torn by the same hand that formed your bloodline. The one who never sleeps is awake over your household, and the one who is awake over your household is not going to look away. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not in the morning that is coming after this. The story is being rewritten. The line is being released. The chains are not going to make it past your generation. They end here. They end with you. They end tonight. Go in peace, beloved. The Father is not whispering anymore. He is declaring, and his declaration is the only voice that ever truly mattered over your family. Sleep, breathe, believe. Tomorrow you will walk through ordinary doors and discover that the rooms behind them are not ordinary at all. The Father has been busy in every room you cannot see, and what he has done in the dark, he is preparing to reveal in the light.